I'll get into the juicy part of where I was shot, which everyone wants to hear. Unfortunately, whatever you've read or that has been covered by the media hasn't been from me. So this is the first true account. Where to start? It was a bit of a traumatic experience. It did happen not so long ago. So there's still, I haven't spent a night, well, I spent one night alone, and it wasn't the best experience. But I was about 4.5 days paddle from my next greatest or resupply, which was in a place called Pucallpa. Initially, I was getting harassed by the river dolphins. I actually had one come up and breach my kayak, so I was petrified of them. And I have a huge respect for them, but their inquisitiveness eventually drove me to sticking to the sides of the river. I was paddling, and before I had this really uncomfortable feeling, but I'd had it quite a few times along the journey, so I didn't think much of it. And despite having that uncomfortable feeling, you can't really do anything besides just paddle. As I was paddling, I had 2 young kids, about 20 years old, come along on what they call, it's a peke. It's like a wooden dugout with about a 40 horsepower engine. They came past, I didn't think much of them. I was just like, yeah. They went ahead. I was paddling, wasn't paying much attention, and as I was going, I felt this thing hit my back, and I went into like paralysis from my waist up, and I just went, and then I just fell. I couldn't move, and I fell into the water, and I capsized with my kayak. I was underwater, opened up my eyes, and I stuck. I'm like, first of all, I thought someone had hacked my arms off because they seemed separate. They looked like they were floating away, and I was like, what the hell is going on? And I'm just staring underwater, and it was very peaceful. And then, fortunately, I regained a bit of movement in my legs, so I kicked up to the surface, and I just threw my left arm over the kayak, and then I got shot again in the face here, and it was by a shotgun, so it sprays. If it was a rifle or something else, I don't think I'd be here telling the story. But so the second shot came in, and then I realized, okay, I've been shot. So then I was in a panic. I was like looking around, and I had just a jungle wall here, and I was like, what's going on? Okay, I've been shot. And I swam to the riverbank, and then I lay there, and then I got shot again in the face. And then now I just had, because it punctured this artery, and it just went straight through the windpipe, and I just had this pool of blood. And I sat there, and I was lying, and I was like, okay, you've been shot, you're bleeding, now's when you die. So I didn't know the process of how you die. So I sat there and I closed my eyes. I sat there and I closed my eyes. I'm not particularly religious, but I thought, okay, I closed my eyes. Where's the white light? No white light. So I opened up my eyes and I could still see everything. I did it again, and I thought Jesus was going to come. He didn't come. And at that stage, I was completely euphoric. I was just remember just sitting there, and I was just playing like under the water. I was just like, waiting to what I thought I was going to die. These 2 individuals, the one had run into, and he shot me. The other guy came back on the boat, and he was coming towards me. And I saw him, and I jumped up, and I prayed. I was like, please just leave me alone. You can take my stuff. And for 3 seconds, I saw this look in a human that I've never seen, and it was like no compassion. It was the scariest thing I'd ever seen. And at that moment, I said, if I wait here for that guy to get me, then it's definitely over. So I got up and I started running. As I started running, they shot again, and I got hits in the thigh. And despite my arms being frozen, I was stuck like this, my leg started to seize. I just ran. I ran, and I saw a ferry in the background. And I ran towards that, thinking I'd reach it. But by the time I got there, it was a good 3 or 4 kilometers through the jungle, along the riverbank. There was nothing. And as I got to the spot where the ferry had initially passed, I saw 2 guys across the river. And I tried to call out to them, but because I'd been shot here, there was no vacuum. So I got a loud whistle. I tried to whistle, but it was like, pfft, and then nothing. And then this left arm, I started to regain movement. So I was like, And I was trying to get hold of the guy, but they couldn't see me. Then I tried to scream, and still nothing. It was just like a grunt. And I'd jump up for 5 or 6 seconds, and then all my energy would be drained. I'd just lie in the mud, and I'd just be like, okay, wait, one more jump, one more, go again. And eventually, I got their attention. They came and picked me up. They took me across to their village. At this point, like where I'd been shot, my whole face was numb. And then, now that I was in what I deemed as safety, I started to try to self-diagnose myself. I knew that I was definitely had internal bleeding. And my issue was, am I going to drown in my own blood? Is it flooding my lungs? And then what happened from there is none of these indigenous tribes had the resources to get me to Pucallpa, which was about a day and a half by a motorized boat. So through the night, I was taken like a baton in a relay race. They would take me 2 hours to the next village, negotiate if they could take me, and then I'd be passed on like that. And what would happen throughout the night is they'd take me and they'd walk me into the jungle and they'd leave me and go speak for about an hour. You know, there was no urgency, which irritated me in this situation. The worst was when I got to the second tribe. Eventually, all the internal bleeding, I was there for 3 or 4 hours, and nothing. And there was no urgency. And what happened is I started vomiting blood, but buckets of blood. Like I was like, okay, this is when I'm gone. This is it. This is finished. And then what happened was the blood had coagulated in my stomach, but the relief was that it wasn't in my lungs. And then I started pulling out the chunks of coagulated blood. And then the village, or the indigenous community, they saw this and they're like, okay, shit, this is serious. We got to get this guy. And throughout the night, I mean, the story doesn't fit into a 7-minute period, but throughout the night I was passed until I got to Pucallpa. When I got to Pucallpa, I had nothing, and I mean, the ironic thing was that I managed to get hold of my mom, I got hold of my aunt, and my aunt's husband works in the SAB Miller, and they had a brewery in Pucallpa, and they fortunately came to my rescue. They put the money up front to fly me to Lima, where they had the facilities to operate on me. But the irony came is that I don't drink, I don't support SAB. But when I needed it, they were there for me, so I think tonight you guys are welcome to have a beer. And then, from now, I only returned last week, Tuesday. I do still have a recovery process. I mean, that spirit for adventure never dies. I do still have a bullet lodged in my heart that will be monitored for the rest of my life. I still have about 6 or 8 left in my body. I still got in my face. But fortunately, they're pellets, and I'm hoping the body will extract them. But, as I say, no matter what happens, I mean, every adventurer goes through some form of something going wrong. I didn't prepare for it, but I still haven't lost that spirit for adventure, and I still, as soon as I can diagnose what's wrong with me, I can't wait to get back in the saddle and continue doing what I love and sharing it with you guys.